Hello to everybody, I'm Antonio CHIALASTRI, a 55 years old captain. On invitation by Lisa Berry, I am with you to talk about the pandemic COVID in aviation. Just two words on myself. I am an Italian captain, 55 years old, married with Paola. We have 5 children from 26 to 12 years old. I started my career in Alitalia in 1987. I've been flying on the DC-930, on the Airbus A300, on the MD-11. Then, after 10 years as a co-pilot, I upgraded to commander on MD-11. From 2010, I've been flying on the Airbus A320 family. And this is my professional career. I have been a type rating instructor on the MD-80. I have studied at Rome University La Sapienza. I'm graduating philosophy, in epistemology, in bioethics, and I'm going to graduate again in September in political science. This is my cultural background. In the meantime, I wrote 6 books on human factors and human performance limitations, the CRM or teamwork, on the human-machine interaction, and the flight philosophy, safety philosophy, and the human error. How did I experience the COVID and the lockdown? It was a very good experience to me because I spent my time studying, playing, reading, following the children who had to study at home, calling the friends that they have neglected along the years, and eating well regularly. And this is something new for me, actually. But it will end soon because now in the next month I will return to fly regularly. According to an Eurocontrol estimate, by 2021 January, there will be a decrease in the transported passengers about 20%. They imagine 3 scenarios, one pessimistic, one optimistic, and one neutral. All those 3 scenarios converge about the consideration of a decrease in 20% of passengers in the next January. But actually, in my opinion, nobody can say what is going to happen in the next 6 months, because we don't know if the pandemic comes back again in October. What I can say about the pandemic, as Americans say, it cannot reign forever. Obviously, sooner or later we'll recover. We had some experiences like the Gulf War in 1991, the terrorist attacks in the United States in 2001, the economic slowdown in 2008. They hit hard, very hard, the airline industry, but every time the airline industry grew stronger and stronger, and will be, I think, even in this case. It takes time, obviously. It takes time to recover. We cannot even say if the vaccines would be available by October or by the winter, and we don't know if the social distancing will be applied as well on the aircrafts. You have to say that right now many countries have adopted no more limitations about the distribution of passengers on board. It means that from May to June in Italy, the national authority imposed the obligation to have a social distancing on board. It means 1 meter, and it means that the aircraft could be filled maximum 40%. So, if the passengers are not traveling with the airline, you lose. If the passengers want to fly with the airline, you lose the same, because the break-even point in an aircraft to be profitable is at least from 70 to 80%. But if you fill the aircraft at 40%, it means that you are flying losing money. Then there is another issue. Can we oblige the airlines to fly losing money? Because they are private entrepreneurs and they have to make money from the airline business. It is normal that the state can oblige the airline to fly even if the passengers on board could be no more than 40%. What about the industry as a whole? Because the industry is made by regulators, by manufacturers, by airlines, by unions, by even university research centers and so on. So there are a lot of stakeholders in the system, but not every stakeholder will be affected in the same way. For example, maybe in the think tanks are not affected at all. They are studying a lot about the COVID. The airlines, the people who are doing business will be affected severely by the effect of the COVID, obviously. The regulator, is the regulator up to date with all the laws and rules and norms coming from the OMS, the World Health Organization? On the human factor perspective, we have to ask ourselves how the COVID affects safety. For example, crew members are very worried about losing their job because there are a lot of companies, a lot of airlines shutting down, going bust. So losing the job, being displaced in another home base, for example, because many airlines are restructuring their network and moving people from one country to another. Moreover, the flying skills are affected by the COVID. I think yes, because flying a few hours a month keeps the pilots not trained, not up to date. We say about the qualified, proficient and confident pilot. Qualified means that the licenses are valid, formally valid. Proficient means that the airlines, the company, trusts the pilot because he or she has performed at least 3 landings in 90 days. It means that it could be proficient because formally he is or she is proficient, but is she confident about flying? He feels confident about his skills, the knowledge, the ability to respond to an emergency in flight. I heard about the accident in Pakistan, in Karachi. There was an awful accident in a clear sky, no traffic, home base, and nonetheless the crew performed very badly. We don't know yet how, but from the first hints about the accident, the first things I asked was which was the last flight of the captain, for example, 2 months before. There are also problems related to training. For example, is it possible to train a pilot remotely? What type of skill are acquired or lost by being alone at home, studying or watching training videos? What happens in the simulators after you haven't flown for 3 months? Do you feel comfortable? You feel confident? The simulator also is a moment of examination, where if you fail in some airlines, you risk being fired. So there are also liability issues. For example, Who and how should respond if a passenger or a crew member get the COVID on board? For example, are the pre-boarding checks adequate to detect if a passenger is sick, for example? At the moment, they are just gauging the body temperature in order to see if some sick passenger gets on board. But the problem is for the asymptomatic passengers that are very hard to detect. And then, who is possibly responsible? For example, the state, because it's not issue any adequate regulations, or the regulatory body, like the Civil Aviation Authority, because it's not checked the operator, the airlines, or the airlines that does not train the people to detect the sick passengers, or the captain itself. The captain because has not exercised the airmanship. Let's recap now what we have said about the COVID lesson, the lesson learned. First, the air transport does not allow any long-term forecast. Secondly, the airlines must be resilient, that is to say, to quickly adapt to any changes. Third, some public intervention in support of the airlines might be necessary because the market is unable to regulate itself. Finally, the air transport must always focus on the black swan. The black swan is the unexpected, the unexampled, something that could happen, and you have to be very, very quick to respond and to adapt to the new conditions. That's all, folks. I hope that what I said could be useful for you to reflect on a situation that all we experience for the first time in the world, and but I'm sure that we'll overcome this problem, and the airline industry will return to be stronger and stronger. That's all. I thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a pleasant evening and a good night. Ciao!